I felt sluggish. I had
Yeah.
brain fog. I had migraines all the time, and I felt bloated and tired, basically. And all those, literally within 48 hours, just disappeared.
It's
Yeah,
amazing the way it's happened that so many of us have actually been duped and tricked and conned to think
yeah,
that the disgusting foods that we don't want to eat, that aren't even growing in our country all year round, they're certainly not in season all year round.
yeah,
We
yep.
should be putting that into a blender, which is a man-made machine, bit of technology,
Hmm.
and making a puree out of it and necking it, even though it's absolutely disgusting. Have you ever observed any animal in nature going,
Yeah,
"Oh,
force
I
feeding
can't
themselves.
stand our diet. Why do we have to eat
Yeah.
grass all day?" Favorite carnivore superpower?
Do you do sort of regular blood tests at all? And if so, are there specific like nutrients or minerals that you're targeting?
I honestly just target the diet. I always address food first. I don't have any symptoms. And so I have had blood tests, but it's not because I want to look at my results or potential deficiencies. It's just fear mongering. We don't really need to be concerned with numbers at the end of the day. We shouldn't
Yeah,
really be looking at numbers. We should be treating ourselves, how we present, how we feel. So I don't have any
yeah,
kind of indications that I'm deficient in anything, that I have any kind of health problems, and so I'm not really interested. I actually don't care what my bloods would say if I was to look at it. Just don't care because I feel good. I think what we should be doing as human beings is eating species specific, the
yeah,
appropriate diets that are ancestrally consistent, are in line with our physiology, etc. And if you have some kind of symptom, say you're fatigued, say you've got some gum problems, maybe you can't articulate properly or you can't initiate sleep, well, then perhaps look into your bloods and get them interpreted by someone who understands the nuance, because that's really important. So that's where I sit with that.
yeah. I totally agree. I think it's to do with how you present, isn't it? And when I had my bloods covered by Coach Steve, and he said, what the clinical presentation of an individual is what matters. The numbers are otherwise arbitrary, for the reasons you gave. I noticed, we noticed on that call that my folate was a bit low and my iodine was a bit low. So to address those, just out of curiosity, I've included some beef liver just a couple of
Mhm.
times a week, and some fish. And
Okay.
and and actually was a point Coach Stevens said, like, if you include some fish, you're going to get your EPA, DHA, some omega-3s in there, which
Yeah.
can't do you any harm. So it's only been like a month I've incorporated these foods. So the jury's still out whether, I mean, I don't feel any different, if I'm honest.
No, I don't
And
think.
I'm wary of like the placebo effect of like, oh, I've got to stick to this now. But
Yeah, duck eggs are another one for folate,
yeah,
D3, etc. Chicken eggs, getting outside. But
yeah,
really, it's like Michaela Peterson. She presented with a supposedly low folate level, but according to who, on the basis of what? These are
yeah,
man-made levels that we've decided are optimal, and they're just within a range based on average people that enter the hospital.
yeah.
Just average sick people in the
Who
West
was
that
sick?
don't know what
Yeah,
food is. Yeah. So
yeah,
who's to say that we need as much folate when we're on a diet that doesn't require insulin response, etc. There's no carbohydrate in any kind of meaningful way coming in. There's traces of it in meat, but that's it. So there's
yeah,
probably a lot of nuance. Just like T3, like Stephen would have gone through this with you, your T3
yeah,
levels, you don't need as much. There's reasons why. And so that's why it's important to have someone that understands the nuance, interpret your bloods if you are interested in having your bloods done and if you're concerned. But I think, symptoms first. For me, all my symptoms
yeah,
went away. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I better run and get a blood test just in case. It's like I was being affirmed daily that I was doing the right thing just by my own lack of symptoms, and my outlook was healthier and my energy was up. And
yeah.
like, I
When your body is telling you you're feeling good, you're sleeping well. Like
yeah,
for me, we haven't even gone over what brought me to carnivore, but in short, I was 30 years old, but I felt like I was probably 50. I felt sluggish. I
yeah,
had
yeah,
brain fog. I had migraines all the time, and I felt bloated and tired, basically. And all those, literally within 48 hours, just disappeared. So
yeah,
yeah, whatever numbers I presented with thereafter,
yeah.
not an issue.
That's the
So
thing. Imagine, you've gone to the doctors with your migraines and then you switch your diet. I think it's basically reducing carbs, increasing sodium. Your migraines go away.
yeah,
If then they said, oh, but this is, but this level is out of range, so you're doing the wrong thing. But it's like, yeah, but I feel fantastic. I
yeah,
feel better than
yeah.
ever. How can that be wrong? And it's just not. People are
I,
so
I
concerned for like Jordan Peterson. He's going to kill himself.
yeah,
Oh my God. It's like, but
yeah.
every single thing that was bad about his life is now not an issue. How is that
I know.
inappropriate? Doesn't that sound like a good thing to do?
Absolutely. And I remember this lady, obviously Coach Stephen is like pro carnivore, so he interprets the numbers as we would expect him to, like with using common sense. But there was this one lady I did an NHS blood test with, and I didn't mean carnivore for a month, but I went along just for a laugh because it was like free and whatever. And she was like, "Oh, cholesterol really high," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing this carnivore diet. Have you heard of it?" And interestingly, she said I was on the keto diet and I lost a ton of weight. I think she said something staggering, like she lost like 20 kilos. She's like, lost a third of her body weight. I was like, "Oh, how do you feel?" And she's like, "Yeah, fantastic." I was like, "Yeah, I also feel like amazing. I feel 10 years younger."
Yeah.
And then she was like, "Yeah, but the numbers, And I was like, "Yeah, but I feel fantastic." And she's like, "Yeah, but you could just have a stroke at any minute or heart attack." I said, "But
Yeah.
surely there'd be signs that the body would give you some form of warning that you would be slowing down, you would be feeling uneasy." And not only was I not getting those negative signs, I was getting the complete opposite. And
Yes.
when she
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, but the ranges say it should be within this." So yeah, I'm all for looking at taking those numbers as a pinch of salt. And we know the whole backstories. I'm sure all your viewers do, as to how those numbers and cholesterol came about. It's all full of fraud and the rest. So
Yeah.
so just moving on from that, have you altered your approach over the course of a couple of years? You've been carnivore a couple of years, yeah?
About two
Have
years
you
and
like
9 months. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Have you like removed certain foods, added certain foods? I know you spoke on your channel fairly recently about maybe reducing eggs and was it non-ruminants?
Yeah. That's just me. So I don't want to sort of deter anyone away from eggs. Eggs are great. Just for me personally, I've realised, over this duration of 2 years and 9 months, I would say for the last half a year at least, just a gradual trend where I don't feel as optimal, including eggs. I had felt better on them raw, but if I don't feel good on them cooked, and then when they're raw, there can be some issues with the whites, the anti-nutrients and whites, whether you want to call them that or not. But
Yeah,
I just started to question it, and I thought, well, if I don't feel optimal, if I'm not even really cooking them that much, just cooking the white through, the yolk's nice and runny, but I felt like I was aware of the digestive process. I could almost tell you where the eggs were or something. It was weird, and
yeah,
I don't get that same sensation from eating ruminant meat. Another thing is dairy. So a lot of people will know that have consumed dairy over my journey, but this was kind of on and off for sort of again in mind with my surgery. So I did incorporate some A2 dairy, raw milk, Jersey milk,
yeah,
delicious. It is quite sweet. There's a problem with it there alone, but I was basically using it to gain weight in a healthy way because, as you probably know, it's very, very difficult to put on fat if you're only eating fat and meat from animals because your body works
yeah,
really well. It says you've had enough. And so it's
yeah,
hard to force feed any more fat and protein into your system. But if when you're full, you then grab a glass of milk and you just down that, well, that's an easy way to
easy.
gain weight. You've also got carbs present, and of course, that's just going to elevate your activation of your Randall cycle, and you can pack on a little bit of weight. So I wanted to
Yeah,
do it in a way that I wasn't consuming plant compounds, and that's just how I came to that. But this came in and out of my diet as my surgeries kept getting cancelled, and I was like, for goodness sake, I just kind of want to know when it is, put a little bit of
yeah,
weight on, and then that's it. But after my surgery, I did drink a little bit more milk to put on some weight that I lost, and then I just kind of got rid of that. But fairly recently, before the eggs, I cut out all dairy, and so I was consuming some butter here and there while I was still eating eggs to cooking. Once the eggs went, I just don't consume any dairy either. So there's a couple of
mm,
reasons. So I don't really think dairy's that ancestrally appropriate when we compare it with things like ruminant meat. Obviously, we're looking at stable isotopes. We can see we predominated ruminant meat.
yeah,
Dairy
yeah.
is more of a new thing, hasn't been in the diet for as long as like
Agree.
animals like meat, fish, etc., like that. But I also have sort of looked into the nuance with calcium and magnesium, and I'm not sure we should be consuming extreme amounts of calcium. It might not look that extreme, but in the context of magnesium levels, it can sort of throw it a little bit out of balance. So eggs often contains 28 milligrams roughly of calcium to about 6 milligrams of magnesium, where in ruminant meat and muscular tissues, blood, etc., it's quite even. In fish,
Right.
ruminant meat, etc., and so that calcium can have an antagonistic effect on magnesium, and they're like that. Calcium's quite
Yeah,
excitatory to the muscle. There's a lot of sort of
yeah,
action potential when you get eye spasms or leg cramps. Too much calcium, not enough magnesium. So if you're
yeah.
This is why people want to introduce electrolytes in the beginning, increase salt because your insulin drops, you're going to lose sodium, electrolytes and everything, water, and that all follows. So you basically want to consume enough protein. This is where a lot of people go wrong, to raise your insulin enough to hold on to electrolytes at the level of the kidneys. But you also want to be, and again, I wouldn't obsess. Don't worry about eating one meal a day or 2 or 3. In the beginning, just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full.
Yeah.
I just think if people are transitioning overnight, they're not eating enough salt, they're not getting enough protein, and they're eating lots of eggs and dairy, that can be a problem for some people. And that may be why some people continue to cramp. If you've gone carnivore and 3 months down the line, I'm still getting cramps, it's like, pull back on the dairy, pull back on the eggs.
Yeah. Interesting.
If you have any kind of symptoms and you've got dairy in it, I would just say take out the dairy and do an experiment. Do that for 6 weeks. You're probably going to get your answer,
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right. I think it's that appropriate ancestrally. Do you have anything you're sort of working through trying to optimize or sorry, did you say you take an electrolyte currently or not?
I take an electrolyte. Yeah, I don't drink a lot of water really, if I'm honest. I eat a lot of fat and I eat a lot of raw products, and so you kind of create a lot more water that way. If you're eating a lot of fat and you're eating raw, there seems less of a demand to drink water.
Interesting.
I always seem to be more hydrated, but I'm not really trying to figure anything out. I've just basically cut out the eggs and dairy, and I feel optimal really on a lion diet. The only thing I do incorporate in addition to that is fish once a week. So Friday or Saturday, usually I'll add salmon, mackerel, lobster, scallops, something that's wild, something that's, pretty local, Cornish often. I just believe in that, like what you said, DHA, EPA, different spectrum of nutrients. I do believe it's very ancestrally appropriate. I understand there is a compromised ocean to a degree, but everywhere is. I think don't stress about being perfect. You're not going to escape the microplastics. Unfortunately, we do just have to get on with things. There are other ways to kind of, for example, Celtic salt seems to be better compared with Malden or pink Himalayan in terms of microplastics, but it's
don't let the perfect get in the way of the good.
No, I wouldn't worry too much.
Do you draw the line at like farmed fish?
Oh yeah.
It's just you stay away from that. Yeah.
So I don't actually consume any nutrition from animals that are eating the wrong thing. So I eat cattle that are grass fed for life, pastured for life, and lamb, right, which is ubiquitous. Usually they're quite pastured for life ruminants. Like they're not stuck in a CAFO eating grains usually.
So you've got rid of chicken presumably.
I just don't really. I don't even really crave chicken. It is lean. I craved chicken when I was in the hospital. I think that's a bit of a cliche. When you get sick, you crave chicken or chicken soup. Some other properties that are higher, But if I do consume chicken, which may be once or twice a year, then that's going to be pastured chicken from a butcher's, pastured for life butchers.
Yeah. They're a bit dearer, aren't they? But it's worth it. Yeah, you don't want to ingest all. These are not multi-chain stomachs. And you're just going to ingest the crap that they've been fed, which is. You don't want that residual toxins in you. Kind of defeats the purpose of going carnivore. Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you have so I have a few questions here. I'm looking at my sheets. I mean, do you have a budget-friendly meal versus like a luxurious meal where you got time on your hands? What do you kind of like to do in those two scenarios?
So my situation's actually changed financially anyway. So I've gone on my own window cleaning. My revenue's come down. It's not great. So all of a sudden, I've gone from a position where I'm eating steaks almost every single day to eating ground beef almost every single day and ground lamb. So I've come from a position, and I wasn't like eating really expensive steaks every single day, but social media is, as social media is, often people see highlights, and so when I do make a video, I'll often have nice cuts of meat, why not? But that's not what I'm eating every day. And certainly as of late, I'm eating more budget-friendly meals. So what I do is you can go to a place like Tesco's. You can get some ground beef for sort of $3.99. I think, Tesco's, there's similar packets, 400 grams, 500 grams. Or you could go and support your butchers. And if you get a high-fat mix made up, you'd be surprised. It's not really that much more expensive. And sometimes it's basically the same, even cheaper. So it depends how, the relationship with your butcher and what you're ordering. So usually if you get I would say and
you're getting more calories, obviously, if it's higher fat, you're getting more calories. So you're getting more bang for your buck, I'd argue.
You're getting more food and the fat is gold. And often, these are being cut off, thrown away, and it seems criminal. I mean, this stuff literally contains the essential fatty acids vitamins A, D, E, and K. You know, this is real quality food, and a lot of the time it's getting thrown away. But if you order, say, 500 grams of beef, ground beef, 500 grams of ground lamb, and you have them fortify some organ mix, so you don't have to consume a ton of liver. You're talking about mostly heart, bit of kidney, and a bit of liver, and then a load of suet as well. Suet, they often throw that away, or it's dirt cheap, fat trimmings, etc. If you get them to throw all of that in there, that will bring the price down, because they're kind of averaging out the price. It's not like the price of lamb. It's certainly not the price of ribeye. It's, ground beef prices, but then that's been reduced with organ meats being fortified or suet. So that's actually what I'm doing. And because I don't find I eat as much in terms of volume, mass of food, when I'm eating ground meat, I feel like I'm maybe missing some things. I understand it's kind of like nose to tail, so to speak. So you're getting bits of everything, but I just don't seem to eat as much. Maybe that's why there's a lot of certain things and my body's like, right, you've had enough. But because of that, I think if you fortify a little bit of organ meats, really not much at all, just a small amount, and suet and marrow, bone marrow, if you add some bone marrow and things like that, all of this is really cheap. You're getting a real nice spectrum of nutrients. It's definitely complete. And I'm able to kind of make up for perhaps a lack of, nutrients, food, mass, fat, whatever, in the ground beef and lamb, where I don't eat as much. So if I sit down and eat ground beef, I'm really pushing it to eat a kilo in one sitting, but I can eat a kilo of steak all day long.
Same. Last night I had some ground beef, and I thought exactly the same to myself. It was some fairly lean stuff out of the supermarket. It was like 10%. I usually go for the 30% stuff from this butcher I buy it from, but I'd run out anyway. So I put a ton of ghee in there. It was delicious. It was really, really nice. But after like 10 spoonfuls, I was like really full. I was like, this is really dense and nutritious and satisfied. So like parked it and away I went. But yeah, that's interesting. So they blended the organ meat into the mince.
Yeah, or they've done me sort of a batch of ground beef and lamb mixed together, and then they'll do me sachets, like 200-gram sachets of organ meat mixed with suet. And so if you look at that, people will be like, "Oh, you're careful of eating too much liver." You're talking a really small amount. If it's a 200-gram pack, say 30% of it's heart, and 30% of it's like suet, and then you've got a bit of kidney and liver to make up the rest. We're really not talking that much. And again, my body's going to let me know if it tastes a bit off, or I start to lose the love for that flavor, because it's almost like a natural seasoning. If you get like a mixed offal mix and you add it to your ground beef and lamb, it's like you've added a little douse of mixed seasoning or something. It's got a very natural earthy flavor to it. But I think my body will let me know.
I think so too.
I'm going over the top with certain things.
Which is what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, you've done videos on your channel about how fruit would have tasted back in the day, bitter, very seedy, much smaller, not sweet. And that would have told us, spit it out, don't eat it. It's not what your body wants. And, because it's been hybridized so many times over and over, it's confusing our brain signals, as is all the processed foods out there. But, I just laugh when people say, oh, eat fruit and veg, because A, it's got all the anti-nutrients in it. B, it's not got anything that you don't get from meat. And then C, it's just sugar basically. So it's just spike your insulin. So there goes that. But it's like, what do you understand what you're eating? This is not ancestrally appropriate. God knows what that's doing to us. These have been genetically modified. Brussels sprouts. Again, I think it's from your channel. I learned this, but the half of these vegetables didn't even exist even a couple of 100 years ago. And they've just been modified and modified and modified. And I think, I've got 3 little kids, 2 5-year-olds and a 7-year-old. If I try and feed them vegetables, and bear in mind, these are vegetables, as I say today, that have been hybridized a lot to be sweeter, and they still won't eat them. But we like coax our children into eating these things. Like when I was a kid, I remember throwing up on the dinner lady because she tried to force feed me some green beans. And I swear the green beans, even in that span of time between me being a kid and me being 39 now, they taste way better now. But again, it's like you're taking away your body's ability to detect whether that's an appropriate food for you or not. So yeah, it's such an interesting topic. And yeah, and in contrast, in stark contrast, arguably everybody loves the taste of meat. I know vegans might say otherwise, but it's probably just because their ideology is sort of taken over at this point, and they're tricking themselves. You did a great video about the crazy things vegans do, like pouring sugar all over their watermelon and God knows what else. And they're just tricking themselves into thinking, yeah, this is fine, even though I'm pooing like 6 times a day, or even though I've got stomach pains. But if you just let your body naturally decide what it wants and what it doesn't want, as you say, you eat a little bit of liver, tastes great. You eat a bit too much, suddenly it doesn't taste great, and that's your body telling you. So yeah, it's obvious to people like you and me, because we're bought into it and it makes sense, and our eyes are open to it. But it's sort of worth making that point, I think, to skeptics, to make them think twice.
I've had lots of comments like, "Oh, why don't you just grow up, stop being a child, and eat your vegetables and things like that?" But it's like that's not the point we're making here. It's not that I refuse to eat it because it's disgusting and I'm going to be a child for the rest of my life. No, children, their taste buds, like they're more enhanced, and I think that they
Yeah,
tell the body,
they're
don't
untainted.
swallow that.
Yeah,
It doesn't want to just swallow anything. We need to accommodate certain compatible substrates in line with us, our unique form.
yeah,
And so it's not about, oh, they're disgusting, oh, we'll eat them, we've been told they're really healthy, so just grow up and eat them, force feed yourself this stuff.
yeah,
No, it's kind of like, no, I think you need to grow up and figure
yeah,
out that actually you shouldn't be force feeding bitter, toxic,
yeah,
disgusting carbohydrate vegetables.
yeah,
It's nonsense. And these stuff are, the reason why they're bitter is because they are so toxic, and they do contain
yeah,
things like cyanide and
yeah,
a bit of tobacco on your tongue. It's horrible. It's
yeah,
nasty, and you've got on the packet 70 known human carcinogens. People think that that's just because you smoke it. That's almost all the plants out there that contain not the exact
yeah,
same, you know, types of carcinogens and things like that, formaldehyde, etc. But you have got cyanide and certain other compounds that
yeah,
we have seen have these negative effects that are in all plants, sort of thing.
yeah,
It's not like, oh, spinach, obviously contains oxalic acid and things like that. There are lectins and different anti-nutrients, but there are carcinogenic compounds. I'm not making any
yeah,
cause and effect claims, of course, but we find more in plants than we do in meat. And people will say, "Oh, but
yeah.
meat's a carcinogen and bacon's a carcinogen, and they're really,
Ridiculous.
really
Yeah,
dangerous for your health." But nobody talks about the same in plants, and
yeah,
the same with nitrates. Oh, there's
yeah,
nitrates in bacon, but they won't say, "Oh, but actually, there's nitrates in plants as well," but they won't talk
yeah.
about it. So it's crazy smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we know where that propaganda's come from. And I mean, I put myself in the hospital when with too much spinach. I got a kidney
Mm.
stone, and that's quite a common thing. And it was because around that time I started to feel sluggish and tired and bloated and had migraines. I was like, right, I obviously need more vitamins and minerals in my diet. This was 5 years ago, so
Mm.
I just started blending tons of fruit and veg and putting superfoods in there. Um, and yeah, it just did me more harm than good. Like I was saying to Dave Mack on his channel when he interviewed me, the information about the nutrients in meat is so suppressed. All the nutrients you need is in meat. It's just shocking how that's not known. And then on top of that, we're told actually don't eat the meat because that's got fat, and fat is cholesterol, and cholesterol is heart disease, and it's just all upside down. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely black pilling. When I discovered, I mean, I was really happy to hear that, like, bacon is a superfood, and I don't have to keep chugging these turmeric, ginger,
Oh,
spinach,
that's why you got
kale,
your kidney
fruit,
stones,
nonsense. Yeah,
spinach and
yeah,
turmeric and goodness me,
everything.
kale.
Chia
Oh,
seeds. I had
it's
like
terrible.
bananas. I had oranges. I had everything, because thinking this is what I need to be doing, and I didn't want to eat it, so I blended it, which probably makes it even worse because it's just liquid sugar at that point.
Yeah, yeah,
But anyone who has a quick Google, like how to up my vitamins and minerals, they will be pointing in the direction of fruit and veg. It's just it has to be corrected. I'd love to see the day that happens, but I'm somewhat skeptical, as you can probably
yeah.
tell.
I think it's going to take a long time. I mean, it's
Yeah,
amazing. the way it's happened that so many of us have actually been duped and tricked and conned to think that the disgusting foods that we don't want to eat, that aren't even growing in our country all year round, they're certainly not in season all year round. We should be putting that into a blender, which is a man-made machine, bit of technology, and making a puree out of it and necking it, even though it's absolutely disgusting. Have you ever observed any animal in nature going, "Oh,
force
I
feeding
can't
themselves.
stand our diet. Why do we have to eat grass all day? Why do I have to eat fruits and nuts? Oh, no, go on. No, eat that.
Eat
Finish
the rainbow.
that.
Eat the
Finish this
rainbow.
bit. That's the good bit. You can leave the meat, but finish that." It's like, it's absolutely nuts. Every animal
Force
just
feeding their cubs.
Yeah. They're not trying to like spit out the food, and the mum's going, "Oh no, but it's good for you."
Yeah, good for
Like,
you.
you don't have to learn what's good for you. You know by taste. You know, if one sort of member, say lions, or they're looking at other lions, they're all eating the same thing. There's no confusion. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they're going, "Oh, but no, I tried this other diet and it's just working way better for me." Eating a load of fiber.
No one's saying like, "Oh, everyone's different." All the lions are eating the same bloody thing because they're just trusting
lions.
their instincts. And also
crazy.
none of them are getting fat, none of them are getting diseases, and none of them are having to exercise like in a way that's not natural to them. Obviously they hunt for the kill in the wild, but we are telling ourselves, well, we have to jump on the treadmill to keep the fat off. We need to moderate how much we eat.
Track it,
All
count
these
it.
things are just a huge psyops. You've got to track your calories, eat the rainbow, eat the stuff that tastes disgusting, even though it's been hybridized and genetically modified a million times over. It still tastes like shit. Someone asked me the other day, like, there was basically this Kate Moss used to say, like, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. And someone was asking me about, like, do I miss like chocolate and sweets and candy? And I was like, nothing tastes as good as how carnivore makes you feel. And I really believe that. Like, I used to be a chocoholic. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I felt addicted to it, which was part of the reason why I wanted freedom in my way of eating. But no, I don't regret it. I don't miss it. First of all, the taste buds have completely changed. My hormones are kind of normalized. I don't crave any of that stuff. I see it every day because my kids eat it. But how about you? Have you ever gone off piste, derailed?
I only tried blackberries during the first summer. But the fiber was just a nightmare. That was one time only. And then I accidentally had seed oils when I went skiing, and that sort of messed me up. Certainly on the first day. The next 2 days I wasn't quite right. Sort of just a bit of a burny repeat sensation. Not like acid reflux, but I don't know.
It's like steaks cooked in cooking
just a
oil
bit
or
of
something? Is that what it was?
I don't know. It could have even been olive oil cut with another oil. But they assured me that they could do it either on a clean grill or in butter. But there's no way. I even looked. You can see it. It looks weird. It didn't taste the same. And
It got a glaze to it.
Yeah, definitely. It just looks. It looks like an oily puddle, on your steak. It's like, So that was it really. Other than that, I've just drank a bit too much milk and felt like I was a bit more moody because probably carbohydrate creeping up. So and then you crave sugar and sweet, and so it's not worth it. Like you say, it's just easier. I find it easier to go more strict. So a lion diet is actually easier to maintain for me, in my opinion, than a BBBE diet, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And certainly with cheese, if you add now dairy or cheese or something to it, it's just harder to moderate dairy, and you might get more cravings. I think if you're still getting cravings and you have dairy in the diet, just take it out, and it's quite miraculous what happens. You really only crave meat, savory, a bit of salt, like all mammals do. But mammals aren't, they're not just designed to just run after a load of sugar all the time. It's a bit strange, really.
Just on that, how's your salt intake varied over the year or two? I hear a lot of long-term carnivores sort of drop the salt after a while. What's your experience?
So I have pulled back quite a bit, but again, recently I've actually incorporated a little bit more, and I just think it fluctuates based on what I need. So again, if it's too much, you usually can taste like it's too much. There's nothing worse than too much salt, or when you go too overboard with it, it's like, you almost can't. You've ruined the whole meal almost. It's almost like you need to cook the same batch again and mix it together or something. But I've pulled back on salt a little bit, but then I've sort of included it more again quite recently, just because my body apparently wants it, I guess. It just doesn't taste quite salty enough, because I got to the point where I was just salting each side of a steak, for example, and then cooking it, and then just that's it. I don't add any more. where now
Yeah.
I'll often pick up a bit of Malden and just sprinkle some flakes on there as well until it tastes right to me,
Yeah.
you know? So,
Yeah. I used to dry age my steaks, like pre-salt them, put them in the fridge for like a week,
yeah.
and then get them out and then salt them again after I cooked it. And after a while, I just my body was just telling me that's too salty. So now
Yeah.
I don't pre-salt them. I'll still salt it to taste afterwards after I've cooked it. But yeah, again, it's just listening to your body's signals, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it will tell you if you need more or less. Shall we do the rapid fire
Yeah, go
questions?
for it. Go for it.
Yeah, cool. All right. So I think I know the answer to this because you mentioned it earlier. Grass or grain fed?
Grass.
Yeah.
Grass every time.
Controversially, I would argue for grass because I think that is better for us. And you know, but there is something to be said for a grain fed finished cow. It does taste pretty decent. But yeah, I so on occasion I will get some grain fed one from the Costco. Costco is all grain fed. Yeah,
Right.
from memory. Yeah, it's all grain fed.
Just grain finished, most likely, right?
Yeah, grain
Like
finished 120
one third of
days,
its
something like
life.
that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
sometimes I just convince myself, well, tastes amazing, and it's only 120 days. But on the other hand, I buy my mincemeat like 10 kilos at a time from grass-fed cows in, I think it's an island actually. I get it shipped over. I still taste amazing. I know that's doing me better. Sirloin or ribeye?
I've changed on this, so I would have said ribeye
Oh
all
yeah,
day long, but now I prefer
yeah,
sirloin. I quite
interesting.
like, especially the gristle. I don't know. It's something about. I
Yeah,
used to dislike that, but now I just like the gristle, the fat. You've got the tail part. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I like a T-bone, to be honest with you, because you've
So yeah,
kind of got the
you
best
got
of
a bit of
both
both,
worlds.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got
I
the fillet.
remember.
You got like sirloin fillet, and then suet often added to the bottom there of the
Yeah.
fillet. But
Yeah, we're spoiled for choice. I can already see the way you're smiling. Like you can taste how I mean, sirloin or ribeye. What a life! I mean,
oh yeah,
people don't
yeah,
understand people who aren't carnivore don't understand how you can eat ribeye every day. But I'm telling you, tastes incredible each and every
yeah.
day. Never gets boring.
You
I
have to
just
do
can't
it
explain
to
it. You
know.
have to try it. You'll
Yeah,
know. Yeah, yeah. Lamb chops or lamb shoulder
chops.
chops. Yeah, same. Chicken wings or drumsticks or neither.
Wings, if I had to, but neither in most ways,
Yeah.
really. Once or twice a year, I'll have wings, say
Tea, coffee or neither.
neither. If I
Yeah,
had
same.
to, I'd probably go for coffee, but I'd probably have one and
Yeah.
finish by about 11 a.m. or something like that. But I don't drink either.
Tallow, ghee, or butter?
Tallow.
Yeah, same, same. You don't do any herbs or spices, right?
No, no. Bit of
Yeah,
Celtic
same.
salt, that'd be it.
Yeah. Bone broth?
Only really during winter months,
Yeah,
usually, I would say. But no, broth is great. Um,
yeah,
People might want to look into the timing of it because you can sort of run into issues with, it depleting other nutrients and things like that. It's great at the end of the day kind of thing, hour,
yeah.
30 minutes before bed, a little cup or something.
Beef jerky?
I like beef jerky,
Yeah,
though I would say, I mean, it's obviously always going to be better if you're making your own because beef jerky in general is too lean. You
yeah,
don't usually find a clean beef jerky. There's always sort of like spirit vinegar or like white vinegar, something like that in
yeah,
there. You'll be lucky to find one that's just basically meat and salt, but it's low in B vitamins, vitamin C, taurine, etc. I think it's fine. It's like pemmican, things like that. They're dried out. They
yeah,
haven't got as many nutrients available to you, but I think they're great if you need a snack, things like that. But I don't really touch jerky. I don't even snack. I don't touch anything like that really.
yeah, yeah. Man of simple pleasures. I,
Yeah,
I, I
very.
do make for the same reason you just gave there, because it's so lean. I just freeze like a couple of ribeyes, and I got this meat slice. I slice it up and I put it in a dehydrator, make my own beef
Nice,
jerky. And that's
nice.
awesome. Well, you ever play around with Wagyu meat, beef?
I've tried some Wagyu. Yeah, I had some Wagyu sirloins from the butchers up the road. Amazing.
Yeah.
I've also eaten quite a bit of it and experienced adverse effects in my digestion again through what they're eating. So I don't preference anything
I
like that. It's very expensive, and you're
yeah,
basically eating some meat that was fed the wrong stuff. That's how they get all that intramuscular fat going on, all that marbling, is they're just eating too much grain. I mean, I've had sort of strange cuts of meat where they were just fed milk, and it's super white and super fatty.
Really?
But but you eat it and you're like, this isn't quite right. I honestly
Yeah.
just love grass-fed ruminant meat, that earthy
Is
flavor.
Wagyu never grass fed?
I don't know, it might be at
Like,
some point, but I think usually
yeah.
it's just fed massive amounts of things like grain, just anything to increase the fat as much as possible. They're making
Yeah.
the cow very sick. It's
Yeah.
metabolically sick with all that intramuscular fat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really preference it, though,
It,
and it's obviously very expensive as well.
yeah. I tried a Wagyu burger the other day, and I was like, I don't know what the hype is about. But you say it's actually quite immoral when you think about it, because they're just force feeding
Yeah,
this poor animal a non-appropriate diet and making it fat and giving it
yeah,
all that intramuscular inflammation and fat, and it's just cruel. It's a bit like, it reminds me of foie gras.
yeah,
You know, you're just
exactly.
artificially fattening up an animal.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I've had foie gras and it tastes incredible, but I can't really justify it. And so yeah,
Yeah,
and I
of
mean, we've
course.
got so many other options as well. Um, I I used to have an issue with like getting crunchiness in my diet. Like on the carnivore diet, it's
Right.
all. I mean, you can make crispy bacon, I suppose. I recently found some. By the way, I'm not sponsored by any of these brands, but M&S do these like Serrano ham crisps, they call
All
them,
right.
and that pancetta, and they're pretty good because it's just pork, salt. That one's actually got some ground pepper in. This one's just pork and salt, but obviously they're just dried and curated. That's quite good for getting a bit of crisp, like
Right.
that texture.
I
Do,
know
do you
what you
ever have it
mean.
like? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever have that
I
craving for
used to. So
crispy?
I used to love everything
Yeah,
crunchy, crispy. I used to like things
yeah,
burnt. So I quite like to kind of, like bread puddings and pies and pastries, that bit that's on the corner or the edge piece that's
yeah,
all
yeah,
crispy, burnt, and sometimes a bit chewy. I used to love all of that stuff. When I went
yeah,
carnivore, obviously I was crisping my bacon up during the first 30 days of my BBBE challenge. But
yeah,
now, if I crisp something, and look, nothing against anyone that does things the way they do things, but if I crisp something or burn something, I'd rather cut that off and not eat it, because I
yeah.
just think it's just destroyed. It's weird to me now.
Oh, it's
Anything that's
carcinogenic,
dry,
right? As well.
I
Yeah,
potentially.
potentially.
Um, we don't know. We can't prove that this is potentially. Well, we can't prove that this is an issue or something that we should be concerned about, because really, we've been doing this for so long. We've been cooking meat. There's no way we would have avoided char. A lot of the time, we just threw our meat
Yeah,
into coals and on top of wood, and it would have been smothered in dirt, flies flying all over the
yeah,
place, with bits of
yeah.
bark and mold and dust and crap, all of this stuff. And we probably just
Imagine
threw
how
it.
strong our immune systems would have been now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I doubt that it's really much of an issue. But I think if you are concerned, then just don't burn your food. But for
yeah.
me, I like the juicy, rare steaks.
Same, same. Yeah, and I do like the bloodier the better, it seems. Right,
Same.
ready for some fun ones?
Go on then.
All right. So, favorite carnivore superpower,
Favorite carnivore superpower?
if you consider them to be
Uh,
superpowers. I mean, you've cured depression, for heaven's sake, right? So, I mean,
yeah,
that's pretty much a superpower in itself. But
I
is
think,
there
yeah,
any
just
like
cognition in
the
general. That to
yeah,
me that is such a
mind blowing, right?
superpower. I mean, because
Yeah,
physically, my body composition's just resolved to just normal. I just look like a normal guy. I don't lift. I don't
yeah,
train. I'm not
yeah.
interested. But if I was,
Neurologically, it's incredible, isn't it?
yes, oh,
The power.
definitely.
Yeah,
But just, I just think that the fact that I can think and speak and I'm
yeah,
not clouded, like I'm sharper, that's
yeah.
pretty cool. I do like that.
I'm having a chat with a lady called Rebecca who has a channel called Cabana Chronicles, who had MS, who was wheelchair bound, and she couldn't complete a sentence at her worst. Went carnivore within 4 months. She had her life back, and she was like that for 10 years. I just think the power of nutrition and on the, like you say, on the neurological side of things is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Anyway, strangest reaction you've ever received from someone when you've said you're a carnivore?
Strangest. I suppose they just don't really get it. Like
Yeah,
they keep asking you, wait, so you don't eat this? No, you don't. Wait,
yeah.
you don't eat this, so you don't eat any vegetables. That
Like
kind of
no
thing. But
fiber.
I don't know if that's that strange. I mean, I had a
Yeah,
strange reaction. It wasn't really to me my carnivore diet per se, but it was about really just when we got into it. And she got really offended when I was talking about different parts, because I think she had a totally different belief system. It challenged her beliefs and she got really offended. So that was weird.
Oh, just a stranger. This was
A customer, a window cleaning customer.
right.
I was
Okay,
actually in her house cleaning like the inside of her doors. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is uncomfortable inside her house. And so I was like, yeah. And then obviously we just wrapped things up and I went. And, yeah, a bit strange, really. But I think I just basically offended her in challenging her beliefs about what she thinks is right.
It's hard, isn't it, not to I'm not there to preach or try and convert anyone, but if people ask me, what's carnivore, and I explain them why, their jaws drop, like you just mentioned, and then I feel compelled to sort of add some knowledge that might have otherwise not been known. I was like, did you know, like, actually this is how we ate for 3 million years, and agriculture is like 10,000 years old, and through evolution and adaptation as such, we were primed to eat this, and all the nutrients are in meat. And then before you know it, I start not ranting, but I start saying, because I might retort with, well, but doctors, they say like cholesterol and they say fruit and veg. And then I start to say like, well, there's this guy called Ansel Keys. And then this, that, and the other. And then before you know it, I feel like I'm preaching. So I like, sometimes I just step back. I'm like, I do me, you do you type thing. And that's that. But
it's hard to see though. It's hard to watch. I mean, I've got so many customers and that I see their prescription meds in the window and on the seals, and sometimes you have to go in to get the money off of them because they can't walk, they can't get up off the couch, and that it's like, it's nuts. Sad. And you see what they're taking, and you're like, but it's none of your business. And so I don't say anything. It's not like I just poke my nose in there, but often people will, when I came out of my surgery, people were like, "How's your recovery? And how's this? How's that?" And they'll ask different things, and well, I didn't eat any hospital food, and right, well, what were you getting brought in then this and that? And they go, oh, right, okay. And then they'll ask questions, and some of them are actually really curious, and you can have a nice conversation, and you change the way they look at things, and at least you plant a seed, and you think, well, that was good. It wasn't like I was forcing it on someone. Oh, how are you? Oh, I'm a carnivore. Let's talk about that. And it's like, no, let's not be like vegans. Let's just relax and, just be healthy. Focus on you, and hopefully people are watching and they can kind of take inspiration, take a leaf out your book just by just observing you. Well, he seems to be doing fantastic. He only eats meat, for goodness sake,
lead by example sort of thing.
Exactly,
Who would you rather hang out with for a month, the Inuit or the Maasai?
Do you know, I think I might go for the Inuit.
Hot climb or Inuit?
I think I would go for the Inuit, just because I think it would be more extreme. I think that would be pretty interesting, as long as I've got like the same kind of gear that they have to wear, so I'm not freezing, because they're acclimatized to it as well. So, but I think the Inuit.
It's impressive, isn't it, how they live? I think we've lost so much of our human skills, survival skills.
Knowing where we came from, the history, the backstory of human beings. It's like people don't know.
Stuck on a desert island, which carnivore influencer are you taking?
Oh man, I'm not a very big guy, so maybe it would be quite handy to take someone like, well, to be honest with you, you got Ken Berry, Chafee, and Sean Baker. They're all pretty big fellas, aren't they? Either one of them.
Pretty handy as well. I'd take someone like Bart Kay as well, just for the humour.
I'll take Yellow Ted. There we go. I'll take Yellow Ted.
Yeah. And then finally, is there like a carnivore person you'd like to meet?
I actually would like to speak to Paul Mason, Dr. Paul Mason.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's great. I think he's got a lovely way about him. Nice personality, very professional, very smart, delivers a great presentation, super knowledgeable. And he just seems like a well-balanced, down-to-earth guy. I think he'd be nice to chat to, for sure. Yeah, Paul Mason.
And then finally, Lee, I keep hearing like Chafee say this. I just can't grasp that it might be possible. But are we going to live to 120 years old?
Me personally, I don't think I will, because I'm already pretty compromised. I've had, my colon removed. I've had 2 big surgeries. I have had some problems in the past, where obviously I don't know whether I'm going to heal from a lot of this stuff, But I would say, if you were born into modernity and, your mum and dad of that child was clued up, and they fed that child, proper birth, They were drinking
Yeah.
mother's milk. They weaned off. They started to teethe on the local game, and they were having eggs and things like that. And then they start eating, a balanced, what I would call a balanced carnivore diet, because most likely they're not going to be compromised where they can't have eggs and they can't have some fish, and they're probably going to be able to do well on all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Dairy may be questionable. You could even eat local, seasonal, and ripe produce. And you might be eating one, sometimes two plants, very small amount at a time.
Yeah.
I think if you did that, why not? Who's stopping? I think that you could easily do it, especially if you're spending a lot of time outside, natural light, grounding, good circadian rhythm, sleep, and then all of that food. You're moving, you're not just a couch potato and staring at your screen all day long, and eating, snacking on crap all the time. Then I think absolutely, I think that you would get there. You'd breeze it.
Yeah, if you could get someone from birth, I think, there's no reason.
There's some people like us, our sort of age, that have had kids, and they've decided, homeschooling. We're not doing. They don't even put their babies in nappies. They train their children to, So they're really kind of a bit perhaps fanatical. I don't think hopefully they're not stressed about it, but they're always grounded, always, and they're always sort of just embracing everything natural and staying away from all the synthetic progress. And they actually feed their children raw animal nutrition, stuff like that. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that they've got the best shot. If anyone's going to do it, it's probably those kinds of people. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Lee. That was a really cool conversation. Thanks for going through all those bits and pieces. I think I've certainly learned a bit, and hopefully the viewers have as well. Nice one. Appreciate it, man. Speak soon. Nice one. All right. Speak soon.